Hello again. This is episode one. My previous episode for this KSP career series was more of an introductory video. In this video, we will actually start to perform some missions and start our career. I'm going to go resume saved here. Go to the same one we loaded up last episode. This is going to be where we do some basic science. I'm a fan of this part of the game. I like to get as much science as I can before launching off and trying to get science from space. That way I can unlock more science uh, devices in the tech tree. So I'm a big fan of working my way down this way rather than working my way through rocketry first. So it's going to be, a lot of monotonous scenes, but I'm going to try to edit it and fast forward through it uh, when we get to that part. So without further ado, I'm going to begin in the VAB. In the VAB, we're just going to do a basic capsule here once it gets loaded. There we go. Welcome to the VAB. Thank you, Warner von Kerman. Basic capsule. Take that flag off for now. Perfect. All right, you can see here we have the Kerbal Engineer screen popping up. Once we start putting some things on there, it'll show more information in this screen. And down here we have some more Kerbal Engineer tabs. But this is the one that I usually use. Even though we have mass here, I like this one because it shows the part count and everything, which is important in this early stage. Can't exceed 30 parts, and I can't exceed 18 tons, which I don't have to worry about for this first mission. But in a few missions, when we start trying to orbit, that'll become more important. So we have our basic capsule. It'll house one Kerbin. Of course, we're going to start off with our Jebediah Kerbin. This will give him a little bit of experience. We need our parachute. And we also will need, these here are for a Kerbal Engineer. This just allows you to, it allows you to read more information about the vessel in flight, but we're not going to need to worry about that for right now. For you beginners, you can see down here it starts stock. Our default, the toggle snap is smooth. If you press the C button, or you can click on this, you can toggle between smooth or rigid, I guess you would call it. Basically, when it's rigid, it snaps to a certain side. And when it's smooth, you can just sort of put it anywhere you would like. Snapping is really important so that you can make sure you get it directly in line. Otherwise, you could do smooth, and your center of mass could be off, which we'll go over that a little bit more when we start putting more things on. But I'm going to snap to rigid, and then pressing the X button or clicking on this will allow you to cycle through symmetry. So this one puts 3 in symmetrically around the vessel. This one will put 4, 5, 6, or 4, 6, and 8. And you can either cycle through if you'd like, or you can hold Shift and press X, and it'll cycle backwards. Just a little helpful tip for you people who haven't played before. All right, so I'm going to do a 2 symmetry here. The reason why is because, if you use 2 mystery goos in each biome, you will essentially max out the mystery goo, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Now, a couple more hotkeys up on the top left here. You have tool place, tool move, and tool rotate, tool reroute. I use the tool move and the tool rotate quite often, and the tool place, obviously. You can get to those from the 1, 2, 3, and 4 keys in their respective order up here. So if I go to 2, you can see that tool move highlights, 3, tool rotate, 4, tool reroute, and then 1 is tool place. Tool 2, if you press 2 and go to tool move and click on something, you get this little arrow. You can use this arrow to slide these things around. You can see how it's sort of choppy right now. The reason why it's choppy is because you have it on a toggle snap. Well, if you take that off to a toggle smooth, you can move it more smoothly in and out. Also, if you want to keep using the toggle snap, you can hold shift and move them in small amounts rather than large amounts. See how choppy it is there? If you hold shift, you can sort of move them out a little more smoothly. I just like to use the smooth one, and you can just move them in. Another quick tip about these, you have F and G. F and G changes the, or F changes the orientation of this, these arrows. This is the global orientation, so this just matches it to the up, left, right of the VAB building itself. You can see the green is pointing up, this is left, and this is to the right. This is positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. If you press F, it changes the orientation to the part itself. Now this is pointing directly up along the axis of the part. This is pointing out along the axis of the part, and this is pointing left and right along the axis of the part. So now I can just move this straight up and down this way, straight out this way, and straight right and left. Cool. Now, if you ever get yourself into this and you're not sure how to get out of it, it's not clicking out, sometimes it does that. Well, you can just press 1 and that replaces it back to the original, to the original use of the mouse, to just clicking on things and moving them around the way it originally was. Again, 3, you can rotate parts. Same thing applies to the snap and smooth. You can either snap around, you can see how it's sort of snapping to different points, or you can hold shift and it'll snap, I believe it's 5 degrees in game, so it's a little smaller, or you can hold the smooth, or you can snap to the, or change to the smooth, and you can rotate around nice and smoothly. Personally, I prefer to stick to the snap when I prefer to stick with the snap feature for rotating, because it allows you to make sure you snap to 90 degrees or straight up and down, 180 degrees, whichever one. So let's say I wanted to place these like this. You can use this this sphere right here. This sphere represents the axes of rotation. So you can rotate along the red axis, the green axis, and the blue axis here. The blue axis would be pointing straight out at us. Watch what happens when I change to the move. The blue arrow points out here. The blue axis is the blue circle is a plane perpendicular to that blue arrow. So you can rotate around that arrow. Same goes for the red arrow. You can choose to rotate around that arrow. It's helpful just to figure out an orientation so you know where you're rotating and how this game is orientated, I think is the correct way. Anyway, so I'm going to move this down here. We already got this rotated. You know it's at 90 degrees because now this guy is straight and this guy is straight up and down. It went from this to this, and it snaps at 90 degrees there because we have it in the snap setting. If we had it in the smooth setting, you wouldn't quite know. You would be approximating the 90 degrees here. And also something else, let's say I do smooth and I put it here and darn, I want to get to 90 degrees. Well, it's hard to get it to 90 degrees. You would have to go into shift and try to approximate it again. But if you wanted to make sure you're exactly at 90 degrees, I suggest after making this mess up, after maybe you thought you were on the snap setting, but you're really on the smooth and you turned it and you're like, oh, I wanted to be on snap, I would highly suggest just going to 1, the move, or the place, and then just grabbing a new one so it reorientates itself onto the correct orientation, and then select it and then get it back to 90 degrees. That's only because it resets itself and it makes it a lot easier. Alright, so I'm going to go to the smooth setting here so I can move it in. Perfect. I like to do this because it lowers the center of mass of the pod a little bit. You can tell. Sorry, I'm having a little troubles with my mouse here. There we go. The center of mass is right there. If I take this pod off, the center of mass moves up to the middle a little bit. Um, the center of mass of this pod is directly in the middle. When I put this parachute on, it lifts it up just enough that sometimes when you're re-entering, it doesn't have a natural tendency to stay bottom down. So the more weight you can put down near the bottom of the pod, the better off you'll be. That way, the bottom will stay facing down during re-entry. And this is just planning for future missions. You can put this anywhere you want for right now because it doesn't really matter. All right, to go over these buttons that I just clicked on, you have a center of mass overlay. It shows you where the center of mass is. It shows you where the center of thrust is. It's way down there right now because we have no engines on here. If I were to place one of these engines on here, well, now you can see this purple center of thrust is directly in line with this engine. Now, what would happen if I rotate this engine around? Well, the center of thrust rotates with it. So essentially, if I were to launch this like this, trying to go straight up, the center of thrust would be firing and would be vectoring in this direction. So I would not go straight up. I would just go out. I would go out in the direction of the center of thrust. And if you combine that with the center of mass, you can see here that the center of thrust does not go through the center of mass. If you follow this line straight up, it actually goes slightly to the left of the center of mass. So what that means is it's going to create a torque around the center of mass, causing your ship to rotate in this direction as you go. If I was on, I'll go over these in more detail in another video when I can use the sandbox mode and I can just sort of let things crash and burn without any repercussions. But just know now, for now, that you can, in order to get your ship to fire in the direction you would like, the idea is to have it fire through its center of mass. So you'd want to have this rotated directly below the center of mass. This is slightly off. So what I'm going to do is reset it, get a new one. Some of these parts have a specific spot where you click on them to move them, and it's frustrating sometimes. So now that I've reset it, it's straight up and down. The center of mass is going to fire, or the center of thrust is going to fire straight through the center of mass, and you'll be able to control your ship much better, much more efficiently. Okay, so right now we don't need an engine on there because we're just trying to do some basic science on the launch pad, and we're going to develop our capsule as we go. One more button to go over down here is your aerodynamic overlay. The aerodynamic overlay shows where your center of lift is. So this has a center of lift right in the center, or right in the middle here on the bottom. This is because this is helpful when you're re-entering. If your center of lift was slightly shifted left or right here, it would cause your capsule to spin on re-entry. The center of lift, all that means is it's similar to the center of thrust that we had before, except now it's worried about the aerodynamic forces along the surfaces of your pod or of your spacecraft. So when you're re-entering, this pressure is going to be going against the bottom of your capsule, and essentially the summation of all those pressures is going through the center of the sphere. If the summation is slightly to the right, well, there's going to be more force on this side causing your capsule to want to rotate. Same thing anywhere else. You want that to be right in the center for your capsule. Actually, fun fact, the Mercury, I believe it was the Mercury capsule, had its center of mass slightly shifted just enough so that it caused it to spin as it re-entered, and the spinning actually helped keep it cool. But in this, we don't have to worry about that so much. We can just do a natural spin on its own with reaction wheels if we need to, which you'll probably see me do. All right. So I've gone over those buttons. Down here are your funds. Down here are the cost of your ship. Sorry for those of you who know all this about the game. I just really want to make sure that any new players get a good introduction. This is the cost of your ship. Up here, this is the build mode. This is your crew. So later on, when we have multi-crew capsules, we can assign different crew members to go up. Uh, right now, Jebediah Kerman is assigned parts with crew capacity, the MK1 pod right here. That's this. And available crew, these are the guys in reserve. To get back, you just click on this build icon. Right here, you have an advanced mode. I wouldn't dive into that too much as a beginner, but right here, these are different ways of um, there are different ways of organizing all the parts. So I can click on this. This is filtered by module. Essentially, geez, it looks like it's filtering by, oh, it's filtering by the module. This is, the modules are in the code. So the engine is the module, heat is a module, electricity is a module, etc. Manufacturer, every part, I'll show you, every part has a manufacturer right here assigned to it. And a lot of the modders, the people who build their own mods, actually come up with their own manufacturer names. So right here is a way for them to filter that. Filter by tech level. We're on tech level 1 right now. Tech level 2 doesn't exist for us because we haven't researched it. So these are all our parts available to us right now. I do not know what this is at all. It must be one of the mods that I have, but I don't know what it is. I'll figure it out. Okay, here you have a cross-section profile. So uh, again, just I would stick to just the regular filter by function. You don't really have to worry about this. And these are the default functions right here: pods, fuel tanks, engines, command and control, structural, coupling, payload, etc. And you'll see me clicking through these, and I'll explain them a little bit more as more things pop up, because right now a lot of them are empty, and I don't really have any options for them yet. An important tab for you to remember, though, if you so choose to use them later as you get more experience, is this sub-assemblies tab. So what this sub-assemblies tab does is I can essentially build something onto this pod. Let's say, let's add in one of those flea boosters here. This sub-assembly right here. This is a flea booster. Oh, actually, I can make a better example. Let's put some fins on it. All right, so this is a flea booster with fins. We can go to the sub-assembly. You can click on this. Whoop. God, I hate some of these parts. Have such a pain in the butt location to click. Okay, come down here. You can, all you do is click it. You're not dragging it. You click it and select it. Move it down here and then click it into this zone. And you can save it. So what that means, it will say flea booster with fins. Don't worry about the description. You can describe. In here, I would usually put how much delta V it has, its mass, etc. Just stuff that I've already compiled, but you'll see me do that later. So now, maybe I build a new pod. I go load up a new craft and build a new pod. Flea booster with fins. It's all saved, ready to click onto anything. So later on down the road, I'll be able to use this and just put it onto another pod if I want to, just to test it, test its landing capability, its parachute, etc. So we'll leave that off for right now. And up here is where you save your craft. Sometimes this Kerbal Engineer can get in the way. You can click that off by down on this tab if you have Kerbal Engineer. Up here is where you save the craft. I'm going to call it Moho Capsule, sort of in honor of the Mercury capsule, except in the Kerbal system it's Moho, not Mercury. Here you can change the mission flag if you would like. I always just sort of keep it the same, Moho Capsule. You have these tabs over here. This is to leave the VAB. This is to launch whatever vehicle you have loaded right here. This is to save your vehicle. So I'm going to save that right now, and then you can open it. So right here you have the VAB or the spaceplane hangar. We have nothing in the spaceplane hangar, but we do have the Moho capsule saved in the VAB. Very good. Cancel that. And here is where you can load up a new craft if you would like. Okay, so let's load the Moho capsule back up. I'm going to turn it this way. The reason why I do that is for later when we start launching. Okay, we've almost gone over everything here, and we're almost ready to perform our first science mission. Down here is what we call our not action groups. Um, well, I can't remember what they're called right now. Anyway, basically, these are controlled by the button Shift. They are, when this is sitting on the pad, I can press Shift and it'll activate the parachute. See how the parachute highlights green when I tab over it? If I were to add in, let's add in our flea booster with fins. This right here is an engine, and we can activate that engine with Shift by putting it into a second stage. So this is stage 0 right now. It has if we press Shift right now on the launch pad, it would activate the parachute and it would activate this booster. Well, down here you have a plus and a minus, so you can come up here you can press a plus and it'll create a new stage. You could scroll over this to make sure that it's the correct booster. Click and drag. Hold the button down. You can't just click it. You have to hold the click down and then place that down there. So now what will happen is we will, if on the launch pad, when we load it up on the launch pad, when I press Shift the first time, it'll activate this one. And then when I press Shift the second time, it'll activate the parachute. You'll see this in action a little bit more later, but for now, I just want to make sure you knew what where these stages are. Down here, a bunch of tabs. These right here are mod tabs. These are not part of the vanilla game. You won't see that. These ones are. This is KSpedia. It's just, you can read through this. This is the devs sort of manual for the game. This is an engineer's report. This is part of the default. I have Kerbal engineer here, which tells me a lot more. But really, all you need is this to really get you through the beginning parts of the game. This just shows a design checklist, parachute on first stage, which can be a problem, but we only have one stage, so it doesn't really matter. In this case, cannot transmit science, meaning it has no antenna. Unused monopropellant. Monopropellant is located in unused monopropellant and check life support. So life support. When you right click on a part, you get this little info tab. You can right click on any part. It gets its own info tab. Okay, so when you right click, you can click up in this right corner and drag it somewhere and it won't go away. So I can right click on another one and it doesn't go away. These all stay up. This is important if you are, usually when you're flying, if you're trying to monitor many things at once. And you'll see me use this fairly often as time goes on. I'm going to get rid of these because these don't matter to me right now. Anyway, the MK1 command pod has life support and it has monopropellant and electric charge. You'll see these electric charge and monopropellant in more detail later, but just know right now the monopropellant's used for RCS control, which are these little thrusters that help control and stabilize your ship. I'm going to move it down for now because we don't need it, and it reduces cost by just a little bit. Electric charge is incredibly important in this game, and you'll see that later on, especially once we get solar panels. Food, water, and oxygen, carbon dioxide, waste, and wastewater. So the food creates waste, oxygen creates carbon dioxide, and water creates wastewater. These are what your Kerbals use to survive. These are from TAC Life Support. They are not from the stock game, so don't expect to see them unless you download the TAC Life Support mod. Okay, so up here in the top of the engineer's report, we have parts, mass, size, height, width, length. In the last episode, I went over updating the launch pad and the launch pad VAB, the spaceplane hangar, and the runway. When you update the VAB, you can produce ships with more part count, with a higher part count. Right now, you only have 30, and you'll see me kind of run into that issue um, a little later when we start trying to build bigger ships. But mass is the big one, and it's why I usually update the launch pad first, because you'll see that the mass is going to increase quite a bit, quite quickly. I never really run into the issue down here, but some of you might. It just keeps you from being able to build a tall rocket or a really wide rocket right off the bat, essentially. But when you update your VAB or when you update your launch pad, you can update this. This gets bigger and you can start to build taller and wider rockets. Okay, so keep an eye on these. There's the mass, there's the part count. Keep an eye on those as you're building. If you go over your part count or your mass limit, this will turn red and it won't let you launch. It'll say that it's over whatever. All right, here you have your contracts. We only have one accepted right now, and you can click here to see the notes on it. It just says recover, transmit any science experiment data from Kerbin to achieve this goal. Easy enough. When you start having more contracts, they'll all be listed here, and you can just scroll through them. It's just helpful so you know what you're building. There are some contracts that require probes to have specific things on them. So it would suck if you build this probe, launch it out to a certain orbit, but you don't have a mystery goo on it, for example, and so it was just a waste of a mission. These right here are goals that have been achieved or milestones. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Usually that doesn't show up in the VAB. I don't know why it's there for the VAB. Okay, so we've gone over sort of all the GUI in the VAB, and I've sort of gone over a little bit of the HUDs of the for each of the parts that pop up. This is where you do a lot of your customization. Parachute, this is important for you newbies to know. The altitude that it starts to deploy at is 1,000. So if I release this at 2,000 meters or 2 kilometers, it will um, stay sort of like a drogue parachute. It won't have enough pressure to deploy until it hits about 1,000. On 1,000, it'll start to deploy. If you want to have a safer descent, you can raise that up, but you'll be floating down for quite a while, going about 5 meters per second, which is pretty slow. But you'll see all that in action later. These mystery goos, you can have them start deployed or closed. Usually you want to start them closed, and you'll see that there's other parts have a lot more options later. Like I said, you can customize this with the monopropellant. I leave it down now just to save. Jeez, it looks like only $12, 12 funds. You can customize how much food you have. I mean, that saves money too. Not that much money actually. There's not enough on there, I think. Yeah, there's not enough on there for it to really affect anything. Here you can turn the lights on so you can see what it looks like with lights on. You can toggle the torque. So up here, reaction wheels are disabled or they are active. Those are your SAS controls. Again, I'll go over that in a minute. The antenna rating is 20,000 meters or 20 kilometers. So up to 20 kilometers, this antenna rating can be in connection to the KSC or to any other of the ground stations that are nearby. So, but you can't transmit any data without an antenna. And we do have, oh no, we don't have an antenna yet. We'll have it on the next unlock. You can toggle the flag on and off. I usually just turn it off because it just saves on the texture, that's all. Seat 0 inventory here, that is for Kerbal inventory system. So the seat 0, this is the inventory for whoever's sitting in there. You can give them an inventory. We'll go over that much more detail later. It's not worth it right now. Okay, So I've gone over sort of everything about it, and you'll see me start messing around with these panels quite a bit throughout the series. So um, I just wanted you to know what they were or what was happening, because sometimes it can people will just go through and they'll click on a bunch of stuff and change it, and they won't really explain what they're doing. I just wanted you to explain what's there, and that way when you see me do it, you can sort of put one and one together. Okay, perfect. So we are going to launch this. We'll save it first, and then we are going to launch it.